The sea screamed with fire that morning, metal, smoke, and men torn apart in seconds. I am your guide through that chaos, and this is Forgotten History Tales. Step into the surf beside me, where every heartbeat meant survival or death. The first sound is not the crash of the surf. It is the howl of the wind, the churn of engines, and the pounding of waves against steel hulls. I take you into the gray dawn of June 6, 1944, D-Day. I stand with them, shoulder pressed against shoulder, packed inside a landing craft where the air smells of diesel, seawater, and fear. My boots are slick with spray. My hands tremble against the cold steel of a rifle. The ramp in front of us rattles as the surf batters against it, and all around me I hear men whisper prayers they've never spoken aloud before. The channel is alive with motion. Hundreds of ships float like dark silhouettes against the horizon, each carrying its burden of men and machines. I feel the engines hum through the soles of my feet, but beneath that thrum is another sound, the thunder of distant naval guns. They fire from battleships far behind us, their shells tearing arcs across the sky, crashing into the beaches of Normandy with the fury of the gods. Every blast makes the earth ahead shudder, but we know it will not be enough. The men inside this craft know what waits when the ramp falls. The smell of cordite drifts over the sea, mingling with salt and exhaust. The air feels thick, charged, as though the very atmosphere resists what is about to unfold. Someone retches in the corner, and no one says a word. I look into the eyes of the men around me. Boys, really, many of them no older than 20, and I see a strange mix of terror and determination. Faces streaked with grime and sweat, helmets pulled low, hands white-knuckled on rifles that feel suddenly too heavy. Then, faintly at first, I hear the rattle of machine guns from shore. The staccato rhythm grows sharper, closer, slicing through the roar of the sea. It is like the sound of typewriters of death, keys hammering out a script no one wants to read. The cliffs ahead glow with muzzle flashes. Tracers streak across the air, red threads stitching patterns of fire. I feel the air shudder as mortar shells plunge into the water, sending plumes high above us. Each explosion rocks the craft like a toy tossed on the sea. The ramp drops. For a heartbeat, time slows. I see the pale light spill in, see the beach ahead, smoke rising, wire tangled across the sand, barricades jutting like broken teeth from the surf, and then men move. They charge forward into the water, into chaos, into the storm. The first ranks fall instantly, cut down by bullets that rip through them before they take 3 steps. The sea turns dark, not from the tide but from blood. I stumble forward, water up to my chest, rifle held above me. The cold shocks my body, but the fire ahead burns hotter. Around me, men scream, some thrashing in the surf, others disappearing beneath it. Machine guns rake across the shallows, searching, searing. Each splash beside me could be my last. I hear a man cry out for his mother. Another curses God. Another says nothing at all, only sinks beneath the waves without a sound. The sand ahead is not salvation. It is a killing ground. Iron obstacles rise from it. Check hedgehogs, wooden stakes tipped with mines, barbed wire snarled in cruel knots. The defenders built this shore to swallow us whole. I drop low, the sand spitting into my face as bullets hiss overhead. I press myself into the earth, feel it tremble as artillery shells detonate nearby, tossing men into the air like rag dolls. But I cannot stay down. No one can. The order is clear. Push forward, always forward. I crawl, then sprint, body bent, lungs burning. My helmet rings with the snap of near misses, each one like a hammer on an anvil. I slam into the base of a metal obstacle, heart pounding so violently I can taste blood. A man beside me fumbles for wire cutters, his hands slick, shaking, trying to slice through barbed coils. He doesn't finish. A mortar shell lands close, and when the smoke clears, only twisted steel remains. The world narrows to fragments, sand in my mouth, smoke stinging my eyes, the deafening roar of war. My senses splinter between survival and despair. I see bodies piled in the tide, waves lapping against them as though the sea itself mourns. I see officers shouting, their words lost in the storm, pointing men toward gaps that do not exist. I see the sky above, gray and indifferent, watching without judgment. And through it all, the cliffs loom, dark silhouettes etched against the morning light, their crests alive with fire. Somewhere up there, German gunners peer through their sights, calm and relentless. We are targets, nothing more. Yet still, men rise. Still, they charge. Some make it a few yards, some make it further. A few collapse against the wire, their bodies becoming bridges for others to climb. I crawl again, lungs seared, ears ringing. My rifle feels useless in my hands. I dare not even lift it. The beach is not a battlefield. It is a slaughterhouse. But even here, amid the screams and the thunder, I feel something else, the weight of history pressing down. I know that what happens on this strip of sand will echo far beyond it, that the world's fate balances on these wet boots and trembling hands. The tide rises slowly behind us, carrying with it more bodies, more debris, more reminders of the cost. Ahead, the cliffs wait, and I realize with dread, we are not yet even at the true fight. The beach is only the threshold. The real battle lies beyond the wire, beyond the smoke, in the fortified earth above us. And so, I press my face to the sand, tasting salt and grit, and whisper to myself that I must keep moving. Because if I stop here, I will never rise again. The question that burns in my mind, and in the minds of every man beside me, is simple. How do we break through a wall of fire when the beach itself is already our grave? The beach offers no mercy. It does not care that we have come in waves, that thousands more are still behind us, pressing forward into the same storm. I press myself into the sand as bullets rake across the shoreline, the sound a constant, merciless hiss. Each time I lift my head, another man falls, collapsing into the surf or against the obstacles. Yet even here, beneath this endless fire, movement continues. Men crawl, stumble, surge forward, one body length at a time. I feel the sting of salt on my lips, grit grinding in my teeth. My rifle is heavy with seawater, its barrel clogged with sand. I wonder if it will even fire, but the thought is pointless. The enemy is not yet within reach. For now, the only weapon is the will to move, to inch closer to the line of wire that bars us from the base of the cliffs. The obstacles rise like a skeletal forest. Iron beams jut at cruel angles, their shadows flickering in the smoke. Mines are lashed to wooden posts, their casings glistening with seawater, waiting for the weight of a man or machine to ignite them. Around me, engineers scramble forward with wire cutters and Bangalore torpedoes, long tubes packed with explosives. They crawl as though dragging their own coffins because they know what happens next. One team reaches the wire ahead of me. I watch them slide the torpedo into place, their hands trembling as they push it beneath the coils. They shout for us to get down, and I bury my face in the sand. The explosion rips the air apart, a deafening crack that drowns even the roar of machine guns. For a moment, smoke swallows everything, and when it clears, a gap yawns in the wire. Not wide, not safe, but enough. The call goes out. Move! I rise with them, sprinting low, heart hammering so violently I feel it in my throat. Men flood toward the breach, stumbling, tripping, clutching their rifles tight. Some make it through. Others crumple mid-step, their bodies folding into the earth as if struck by invisible fists. The machine guns above sweep the opening, stitching it with fire. Yet more men pour in. We climb over fallen comrades, crawl through blood and sand, because there is no choice. The gap is the only path forward. I force myself through the breach, barbs tearing at my uniform, ripping cloth and skin alike. Pain flares hot across my side, but I keep moving. I fall flat as another volley whistles overhead, bullets cracking the air inches from my helmet. Around me, others drop, some silent, some screaming, some never rising again. I press forward on elbows and knees, dragging myself like a wounded animal, until the shadow of a crater offers shallow shelter. The ground shakes as another naval shell lands further inland. Dirt rains down in clumps, mingling with smoke that stings the eyes. For a heartbeat, I believe we might gain ground. But then the mortars fall again, pounding the beach behind us, cutting off the men still in the surf. Their screams are carried by the wind, sharp and raw. I peer upward. The cliffs loom higher now, dark teeth biting into the sky. German positions are dug deep into the rock, invisible yet alive with fire. Muzzle flashes spit from slits in concrete bunkers, the gunners safe within their fortresses. I feel the futility, our rifles against their emplacements, our fragile bodies against their walls of stone. Yet, amid the despair, I see something remarkable. A handful of men sprint toward the base of the cliffs, carrying ladders, ropes, grappling hooks. Their figures are small, exposed, absurdly fragile against the storm, but they move with a kind of desperation that defies logic. They do not wait for orders. They run as if chased by fate itself. I follow, dragging myself from the crater, body screaming in protest. Each step is a battle. Each breath sears the lungs. But I rise again, pushing forward. The sand gives way to rocky ground, the wire behind us. The cliffs tower now, casting us into shadow. The fire from above still pours down, but here, close against the stone, we are harder targets. The air smells of damp earth, scorched powder, and smoke thick enough to choke. At the base of the cliff, men cluster, pressing themselves against the rock. Their faces are hollow with exhaustion, blackened with smoke and grit. An officer shouts above the din, his words half lost in the thunder. "Get up there. Take the guns." His voice is hoarse, ragged, yet filled with a command that pierces even the chaos. I look upward. The climb seems impossible. Sheer rock, slick with dew and blood, guarded by fire raining from above. Ropes are thrown. Hooks dig into cracks. Ladders rattle against stone. Men begin to climb, their bodies outlined against the gray sky. Each movement is a gamble, each handhold a prayer. Some are cut down mid-ascent, their bodies tumbling back to earth. Yet still, others climb. The sound of the sea fades behind us, replaced by the relentless crack of rifles, the scream of shells, the roar of machine guns. The climb consumes everything. My hands bleed as I grip the rope, my legs shake with strain. Every muscle screams for release, but the alternative is death below. I focus on each inch upward, forcing myself to ignore the bodies falling past. The cries of men struck mid-climb. Above, the German bunkers fire on, but the first of our men are reaching the top. I see one pull himself over the edge, vanish into smoke, and hear gunfire erupt. A battle begins above the cliffs, unseen, fierce, decisive. And in that moment, clinging to the rock, I realize the beach was not the end. It was only the beginning. The true fight lies in the earth above, in the labyrinth of bunkers, trenches, and guns carved into the cliffs. The rope burns into my palms, the stone scrapes against my knees, but I do not let go. Not now. The roar of the sea below fades into memory, replaced by the sharper, closer crack of rifles above. I feel the tension in the rope as men climb beneath me, their weight pulling against mine. We are strung together, bound not by choice, but by necessity, dangling between death below and fire above. At last, my fingers find the edge. I haul myself upward, chest heaving, boots slipping on loose soil. The top of the cliff greets me not with relief, but with terror. Smoke curls across the ground, the air thick with cordite and dust. German bunkers rise from the earth like monstrous teeth, their walls of concrete scarred but unbroken. From the embrasures, fire spits, relentless, mechanical, merciless. I roll into a shallow ditch, lungs screaming, heart pounding. Around me, men are pulling themselves up over the edge, faces streaked with mud, eyes wide with the shock of survival. Some collapse the instant they reach the top, too spent to rise again. Others push forward, driven by something beyond strength, by fury, by duty, by the refusal to die without striking back. The ground is torn by trenches, a labyrinth carved into the cliff's crown. I drop into one, the earth cool and damp against my hands. The smell here is suffocating, wet soil, gun oil, the metallic tang of blood. Shadows flicker as explosions rumble nearby, dirt showering down like rain. I move low, rifle ready, each step uncertain. Around the bend, voices bark in harsh German, the language cutting through the thunder like jagged steel. We do not hesitate. Grenades arc over the trench wall, their fuses hissing, their descent invisible. The blasts erupt, shaking the earth, shoving waves of dirt and bodies against the timbered walls. Then we surge forward, bayonets fixed, rifles leveled. The trench is narrow, claustrophobic. There is no distance here, no safety. A German soldier rises before me, helmet tilted, eyes wide. My rifle bucks in my hands, and he collapses, his scream drowned in the din. The fight becomes madness. Men grapple in mud, blades flashing, rifle butts cracking skulls. Gunfire deafens, each shot exploding like thunder in the confined space. I feel the shock of impact as bullets slam into the dirt inches from my head. I lunge, I strike, I fire. No time to think, no room to breathe. The trench consumes us, reducing the war to inches, to faces, to the moment of life or death measured in a heartbeat. Above, the bunkers loom, still spitting fire down toward the beach. Their guns hammer without pause, cutting into the waves of men still struggling ashore. I know that until those guns are silenced, the slaughter below will not end. The order comes, shouted hoarse. Take the bunkers! We crawl from the trench, hugging the earth, moving through smoke and shattered stone. The bunkers are hulking beasts, their walls scarred, but not broken. Machine gun fire whips across the ground, tracers glowing red in the haze. An engineer crawls forward, clutching a satchel charge. His face is set, grim, resolved. He presses himself against the bunker wall, pulls the pin, and shoves the pack into the dark mouth of the embrasure. The explosion tears the world apart. Fire belches from the bunker's throat, black smoke curling skyward. The machine gun falls silent. Men cheer, but only for an instant, because there are more bunkers, more nests, more guns carved into the cliffs like the veins of a beast. I rise, sprinting low, lungs searing. The ground is a patchwork of craters and corpses. I throw myself against the next wall, heart hammering so violently I feel it in my teeth. Another grenade, another blast. The screams inside are muffled, brief, swallowed by stone. We surge in, rifles raised, and the dark interior is a nightmare of echoes and shadows. The corridors twist, filled with smoke and the metallic scent of fear. German defenders appear in sudden flashes, their helmets gleaming, their rifles barking. We fire back in the strobe of explosions, the bunker a tomb of violence. Every sense is sharpened, distorted. My ears ring with constant concussion. My hands slick with sweat and grime. My eyes burn from smoke, seeing shapes that may be enemy or ally. Time fractures. Minutes feel like hours, seconds like eternities. The bunker breathes with the rhythm of war, the scream, the shot, the silence that follows. At last, silence falls heavier than the smoke. The gun is destroyed. The defenders lie still. We stumble out into the daylight, blinking, coughing, our faces gray with dust. The beach below is still chaos, but the fire is thinning. Gaps open in the storm as more men surge forward, more ladders rise, more ropes are thrown. The tide is turning, inch by bloody inch. But victory is not yet ours. I lift my gaze beyond the smoke, beyond the shattered bunkers, and see the sprawl of hedgerows and fields inland. The Atlantic wall is broken here, but behind it lies another world of defenses, trenches, machine gun nests, artillery waiting deeper in the countryside. The battle for the beach is nearly won, but the war for France is only beginning. I grip my rifle tighter, feeling the weight of it in my hands, the tremor in my bones. The fortress of Europe has cracks now, cracks pried open by blood and fire. But through those cracks we must march, step by step, through fields that wait with their own horrors. The beach is behind us, but it does not leave us. The thunder of guns, the screams of the dying, the salt-stung air, they cling to me like a second skin. As we move inland, every step feels weighted with ghosts. I glance back once, just once, and see the shoreline still ablaze with fire and smoke. The tide washes in and out, carrying bodies as if the sea itself cannot hold them. Then I turn away. There is no turning back now. Ahead lies the French countryside. It should feel open, a release from the slaughter of the cliffs, but it is not. The land is broken, a patchwork of hedgerows, fields hemmed in by earthen banks and thick vegetation. They rise taller than a man, walls of tangled roots and branches, turning the landscape into a green maze. The air smells different here, damp soil, crushed leaves, smoke drifting like a bitter perfume. But beneath it all, I feel the same dread. Every field is a trap, every turn another ambush. We advance cautiously, weapons raised, boots heavy with mud. The ground is soft beneath our feet, yet each step echoes in my mind like a drumbeat of fate. The hedgerows block our sightlines, cut us into small groups, isolating us from one another. Gone is the roar of the sea. Here the world is hushed, tense, as if the countryside itself holds its breath. The only sounds are our ragged breaths, the click of safeties, the rustle of gear against uniforms. And then, gunfire. It erupts without warning, sharp cracks slicing through the quiet. Bullets snap through leaves, thud into soil, ricochet off helmets. We dive to the ground, hearts racing, faces pressed into the dirt. Somewhere ahead, hidden by the hedgerows, German soldiers fire from cover. We cannot see them, only the flashes, only the shadows shifting behind green walls. The fight becomes a game of ghosts. We crawl forward, inch by inch, through ditches and furrows, rifles ready. The hedgerows funnel us into narrow lanes where fire can be concentrated. A man rises beside me, only to crumple as a bullet catches him clean through the chest. His helmet tumbles into the grass, rolling silently. We drag ourselves into a shallow ditch, mud thick and cold against our bellies. Grenades become our language here. One arcs over the hedgerow, exploding in a burst of smoke and dirt. Screams follow. We surge forward, clambering through gaps, rifles spitting fire. The enemy falls back, only to appear again from another shadow, another hidden angle. Every hedge conceals danger. Every tree might hold a sniper. The psychological weight presses heavier than my pack. On the beach, death came from the front, from above, in a storm of fire you could see. Here, it comes from everywhere and nowhere. I feel watched, hunted, even when the field seems empty. My ears strain for the faintest sound, the click of a bolt, the whisper of movement in the brush. The silence between shots is worse than the noise itself. We take one field, then another, then another. Each victory feels hollow, for each costs lives. The hedgerows drink blood as greedily as the sand behind us. The countryside becomes a labyrinth of suffering, each corner another test. I lose track of time, of distance. It feels as though we march not across miles, but across eternity, trapped in a maze that shifts and reshapes itself with every step. At one point, we stumble upon a farmhouse, its walls crumbling, windows shattered. A cow lies dead in the pasture, bloated and still. Inside the house, dishes sit on a table, bread gone stale, as though the family had fled only hours before. The silence is crushing. War has hollowed this place, stripped it of voices, leaving only shadows of lives once lived. I feel the ache of it deep in my bones, the knowledge that this land bleeds as much as we do. As evening falls, the light turns golden, casting long shadows across the fields. It should be beautiful, but it is not. The sunset only paints the smoke in warmer colors, gilds the blood in crimson light. We press deeper into the countryside, each step carrying us further from the sea and closer into the jaws of occupied France. Yet even in the exhaustion, even in the terror, a strange realization grows within me. We have breached the wall. The Atlantic Wall, that fortress of Europe, is fractured. For the first time in years, German-held France has been pierced. It feels monumental, mythic, as though history itself has cracked open. But the weight of that truth is heavy, because if we fail to press forward, if we falter now, all that blood on the beach will mean nothing. Night creeps in. The hedgerows turn darker, their shapes looming like walls of shadow. Orders are whispered, not shouted. We dig shallow foxholes, collapsing into them with trembling hands and hollow eyes. The air smells of damp earth and smoke. I lay my head against my pack, and the silence of the night is broken only by distant gunfire, a reminder that the enemy never truly sleeps. And as I stare into the darkness, I realize with cold clarity, the beach was not the graveyard of hope. It was the gateway. The true war lies ahead, in every field, every road, every shadow of Normandy. Dawn breaks again, though it feels as if night never truly ended. My eyes are raw, my body hollowed out by exhaustion, but the war does not pause for sleep. The hedgerows rise around us, tall and thick, their tangled roots gripping the earth like the hands of the dead. Every field is another fortress, every lane a trap. The air is damp and heavy with smoke, laced with the metallic tang of spent cartridges and the sweet rot of churned earth. We move in fragments, scattered groups of men groping through the labyrinth. Radios sputter with static, messages garble and vanish in the crackle. Command feels distant, intangible, like a voice carried on the wind, never fully reaching us. Each squad becomes its own island, cut off, guessing at where the others might be. The war here is not lines on a map, it is confusion made flesh. I march with my unit down a narrow sunken lane, the banks high on either side, roots dangling overhead. It feels like a grave dug too wide, and we are walking straight into it. The silence gnaws at me. Every step feels exposed, every breath too loud. I grip my rifle tighter, finger poised, as though readiness alone might shield me. Then the ambush strikes. A burst of machine gun fire shreds the lane, tearing through leaves, slamming into soil, chewing into the men ahead. They collapse without ceremony, rifles clattering on stone. We dive into the mud, pressed flat, ears ringing. Bullets rake the banks, showering us with dirt. Grenades bounce into the lane, their fuses hissing like snakes. The blasts lift men from the ground, hurling them into twisted shapes against the walls. I crawl, dragging myself into a ditch. My heart beats so hard it feels like it will split my ribs. Beside me, a man clutches his leg, blood pumping between his fingers. His eyes meet mine, wide and pleading, but there is no medic here, no salvation, only the cruel choice between staying and dying or leaving him and living. I force myself onward, the guilt pressing heavier than my pack. We return fire, rifles cracking, grenades arcing back over the banks. The enemy shouts in German, their voices sharp and commanding. For a moment, I see one of them rise above the hedgerow, helmet glinting in the morning light. My shot finds him, and he tumbles backward into the brush. The satisfaction is fleeting, swallowed instantly by the chaos. The firefight stretches on, minutes feeling like eternities. At last, the lane falls silent but not safe. The Germans withdraw, melting deeper into the bocage. We are left with silence and corpses, our own among them. The lane is littered with shell casings, broken gear, shattered bodies. The hedges drip with dew that feels too much like blood. But the horror does not end there. Later that day, as we push into another field, fire erupts again. Only this time, it is not German. The bullets snap from behind us, from the hedgerow we just left. We scream, wave, shout, but the noise swallows our words. American rifles spit death at American men. Panic surges, confusion reigns. We press ourselves into the dirt, desperate to survive the mistake. Friendly fire, the cruelest of betrayals, not born of malice, but of fear and fog. When the shooting finally stops, the silence is worse than the gunfire. Men rise slowly, shaking, their faces pale as ash. We count our losses, but numbers cannot measure the weight of killing your own. It sits in the soul like rot, silent and corrosive. The bocage swallows us again. Hours blur into one another, fighting, crawling, stumbling through fields that all look the same. The sun climbs high, casting harsh light on the chaos, but even daylight feels dim here. The hedgerows are walls, cutting us off from the world. I lose all sense of direction. I cannot tell east from west, life from death, one battle from the next. By late afternoon, artillery finds us. The ground trembles as shells scream overhead, detonating in the fields. Earth erupts in violent fountains, showering us with mud and fire. The blasts deafen, blind, disorient. I throw myself into a crater, ears ringing, teeth rattling, body pressed flat as the world collapses around me. The smell of cordite, acrid and choking, fills my lungs. When the barrage ends, the field is unrecognizable. Trees are shredded into splinters, soil churned into ash. Men wander dazed, ears bleeding, eyes glassy. The landscape itself feels wounded, scarred by violence beyond reason. I stagger to my feet, unsteady, and realize with a shuddering clarity, this is not just battle. It is butchery, stretched across days and miles. Night comes again, cloaked in mist. We huddle in a hollow, exhausted, faces smeared with dirt and sweat. Someone whispers that reinforcements are pushing through, that armor will break the bocage. But the words feel like myths, distant promises. In the darkness, the hedgerows loom taller, their shapes monstrous, their silence suffocating. As I close my eyes, I see the beach again, the water red, the cliffs burning. I hear the screams, the gunfire, the thunder. But worse than the memory is the truth. The further we go inland, the deeper we descend into this labyrinth of death. The morning begins not with silence, but with the groan of engines. At first it is distant, a low vibration through the ground, then louder, closer, until it fills the air with a steady mechanical roar. Sherman tanks are rolling toward us, their tracks chewing through mud, their engines coughing smoke. To see them here, in this green maze of hedgerows, feels almost unreal. Giant beasts straining against the earth itself. We watch them lumber forward, steel leviathans forced into lanes too narrow for their bulk. Their armor is scarred already, gouged by shrapnel and mud, yet their guns still point forward, unblinking. The smell of diesel and exhaust mingles with the damp air, heavy, choking. For the first time in days, I feel a flicker of reassurance. These machines, I tell myself, might shield us, might batter a path where flesh alone has failed. But the bocage resists. The hedgerows rise like walls, their earthen banks dense with roots, thicker than any barrier of stone. Tanks grind against them, their tracks slipping, their noses pressing into the walls without breaking through. The countryside itself seems to mock our steel. Engineers follow behind, sweating, swearing, setting charges into the banks. Explosions tear gaps, smoke curling upward, and the Shermans push again, groaning, heaving, finally tearing holes through the green labyrinth. We move behind them, rifles ready, nerves taut. The tanks fire, their cannons thundering, shaking the earth, sending shells screaming into hidden nests. The explosions rip trees from their roots, fling dirt skyward, silence machine guns that have haunted us for days. The sight is both magnificent and terrifying, power unleashed, steel tearing flesh and stone alike. But the enemy is clever. Panzerfausts and anti-tank guns wait in the hedges, hidden until the last moment. A Sherman ahead of me shudders, flame bursting from its side. The crew scrambles out, coughing, some aflame, their screams piercing the roar. The tank burns, black smoke curling upward, casting a dark shadow across the field. We scatter, pressing into the dirt, rifles snapping as German soldiers emerge like ghosts from the smoke, firing from hidden slits and burrows. The clash is brutal, steel against cunning. Tanks thunder forward, infantry clawing through the hedgerows at their sides. The fields erupt in fire and screams, grenades arcing overhead, explosions hammering the earth again and again. I fire until my rifle jams, clear it with shaking hands. Fire again. My ears ring, my body aches, my soul feels hollow. But still I move, still I fight. Time dissolves. The sun climbs high, beating down, sweat soaking through my uniform. The air is thick, suffocating, every breath laced with cordite and dust. The tanks push, field by field, tearing gaps that we spill through. For every meter gained, blood is paid. Men fall into ditches, collapse against hedgerows, vanish in smoke. Some rise again. Most do not. I find myself crouched behind the wreck of another Sherman, its steel still hot, its gun silent. The ground around it is blackened, the grass charred, the soil scarred by fire. Beside me, a comrade slumps, his helmet askew, his eyes glassy. I shake him, but he does not respond. His rifle slips from his grasp, thudding softly into the mud. I press on, though my legs feel like stone, my heart a hollow drum. By afternoon we break through another hedgerow, and the land opens slightly, a field wide enough for the tanks to maneuver, to breathe. They fan out, their guns sweeping, firing in coordinated bursts. The Germans retreat again, not broken, but shifting, always shifting, drawing us deeper. The battlefield feels alive, as though the land itself is testing us, bleeding us, daring us to keep moving. We advance into a village, its stone houses shattered, windows gaping like hollow eyes. The streets are littered with debris, carts overturned, doors hanging from broken hinges. A church steeple still stands, cracked but proud, its bell silent. The air here is heavy with silence, too heavy. We know what waits. The ambush comes swift. Rifle fire pours from the windows, machine guns spit from cellar doors. Tanks swing their turrets, shells blasting stone into dust. We rush into houses, storm stairwells, clear rooms with grenades and bayonets. The fighting is savage, face to face, sudden. A man lunges at me from a doorway, and I fire point blank, the muzzle flash lighting his face for a split second before it vanishes into the dark. The house trembles with explosions, plaster falling like snow, beams groaning as flames catch. By the time the village is ours, it is a ruin. The houses stand hollow, their walls scorched, their rooms filled with silence. The church still towers above, but its bell will not ring again. We walk its streets in a daze, stepping over bodies, our own and theirs alike. The tanks idle in the square, their engines rumbling, their steel warm with the blood of battle. Night falls once more, cloaking the bocage in shadow. We huddle near the tanks, their engines ticking, their steel bodies radiating warmth. Some men sleep. Others stare into nothing, their eyes hollow, their hands still trembling. I cannot close my eyes. The silence presses too heavily, broken only by the occasional crack of a distant rifle, the reminder that the enemy is never far. And as I sit in the dark, staring at the smoking ruins of the village, I realize the truth. The tanks may push us forward, but they do not shield us from death. Steel may break hedgerows, but it cannot break the will of the enemy, who hides within them. This land is not conquered yet. It consumes us field by field, village by village, soul by soul. The bocage breathes differently now, not with silence, not with ambush, but with a darker, heavier rhythm. We have pushed inland, deeper than I ever imagined we could in those first moments on the beach, yet the land will not yield. It tightens around us like a clenched fist. The tanks roar in the distance, their engines echoing through the hedgerows. But even steel feels fragile here. We are exhausted. Our boots are soaked with mud, our uniforms stiff with sweat, blood, and grime. The faces of the men around me are hollow, shadows of themselves, eyes sunken, lips cracked. Sleep comes in fragments, minutes stolen in ditches, heads resting on rifles, hearts never free from the tension of waking. Food tastes of ash. Water is always tinged with dirt. Yet still we march, because forward is the only direction left. And then one night, the counterattack comes. It begins with whispers of movement, branches snapping, boots crunching softly, the faint metallic clink of weapons in the dark. At first, I think it is imagination, the paranoia that has followed me since the beach. But then flares arc into the sky, bathing the fields in ghostly white light, and the shadows erupt with fire. German infantry pour from the hedgerows, shouting, their rifles blazing, grenades arcing overhead. Machine guns chatter from hidden nests, their tracers stitching the night with crimson lines. Mortar rounds crash down, earth and fire erupting, flinging bodies into the air. The world becomes chaos, lit by bursts of fire and shadow, deafening with gunfire, screaming, the roar of artillery. We fire back, frantic, desperate. Rifles crack, machine guns spit, grenades burst in rolling thunder. The night becomes a strobe of violence, each flash revealing faces twisted in fury, in terror, in death. The hedgerows, so suffocating in silence, now roar with fury, as if the land itself has come alive to devour us. I crawl through mud, firing blind into the smoke. My ears ring, my lungs burn, my hands shake. A German soldier lunges through the haze, his bayonet gleaming. I parry with my rifle, the clash of steel on steel sharp in the chaos. We grapple in the dirt, mud and blood slicking our hands, breath hot, desperate. I feel his strength, his fury, his fear. He is no different from me. For a heartbeat, we are mirrors of survival. Then my knife finds his throat, and the struggle ends in silence. But there is no time to breathe. The counterattack presses harder, wave after wave. Shells burst, flares hiss, the night alive with fire. I see tanks ignite, crews scrambling, flames consuming them in screaming light. I see men cut down where they stand, their rifles falling silent mid-burst. I see officers shouting, orders that vanish in the roar. The line bends, cracks, nearly breaks, and yet we hold. Somehow, impossibly, we hold. Inch by bloody inch, we push them back, the night stretching into eternity. By dawn, the fields are littered with bodies, the hedgerows dripping with smoke. The air reeks of cordite, blood, and burning steel. The Germans withdraw, fading into the shadows, leaving behind only silence and death. I collapse into the dirt, chest heaving, hands trembling. Around me, men sit in stunned silence, their faces blank masks. Some weep quietly, others stare at nothing, eyes glassy. The ground is carpeted with corpses, German and American alike, tangled together in grotesque embrace. Crows circle overhead, their cries sharp, mocking. The counterattack has failed, for them. But for us, victory tastes like ash. We are alive, but diminished, each of us carrying another scar, another ghost. The land itself feels cursed, drinking in blood and giving nothing back. I look at the horizon, the rising sun filtered through smoke and haze. France stretches ahead, endless fields, endless hedgerows, endless suffering. We have held the line, but the war has not loosened its grip. It tightens around us with every step, every breath, every heartbeat. And I realize, with a weight heavier than my rifle, survival is no longer about courage. It is about endurance, about enduring the endless days, the endless nights, the endless cycle of death and silence. Each step forward is another gamble, another sacrifice, another name carved into the ledger of history. The fields of Normandy stretch before me, scarred and smoking. The hedgerows that seemed endless, that swallowed men whole, now lie behind us in broken fragments. Our tanks grind forward through the gaps, their tracks crushing earth, their cannons silent for the moment. The push inland is real now, undeniable. We have broken through. But the silence that follows is not peace. It is the silence of exhaustion, of grief, of disbelief that we are still breathing. My boots are heavy with mud and blood, my rifle chipped and scarred, my uniform stiff with sweat and soot. Around me, men march with shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. Some carry wounds wrapped hastily in bandages, others carry nothing at all, their hands trembling from the weight of ghosts. We pass through villages shattered by war. Stone houses stand roofless, their walls blackened, their streets littered with rubble. A child's toy lies broken in the dirt, abandoned when life fled. A well bucket swings gently in the breeze, though no one is left to draw its water. I feel eyes upon me, not living eyes, but the gaze of memory itself, the land remembering what it has suffered. The enemy is not gone. German resistance still stiffens ahead, but it is fractured now, bleeding, retreating. We hear rumors that the road to Saint-Lô and Caen will be the next battlegrounds. But for now, in this moment, the Atlantic Wall, the fortress once said to be unbreakable, has been torn open. The myth of German invincibility lies in ruins on these fields. And yet, I cannot feel triumph, only the weight of cost. I think of the beach, of the water stained red, of the men who never left the surf. I think of the climb up the cliffs, the bunkers stormed in fire and shadow. I think of the hedgerows that swallowed us in confusion, the night counterattacks that nearly broke us. Each memory is a scar, etched into the marrow of my bones. They will not fade. The air smells of damp soil and smoke, but also of something else now: liberation. Farmers emerge cautiously from hiding, their faces pale, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some weep, some smile faintly, some simply stare at us as though unsure if we are real. A woman presses bread into the hands of a soldier, tears streaking her face. A boy runs barefoot across the rubble, shouting words of joy we barely understand. For the first time, I feel what this means, not for us, but for them, for France, for Europe, for the world. Yet even as hope flickers, the shadow remains. The dead do not march with us, but they are everywhere. They lie in the fields, in the hedges, in the surf. They lie in unmarked graves dug hastily beneath apple trees, their helmets placed above as crude markers. They lie in silence, but their absence roars louder than any gun. I walk on, each step heavy, each breath uncertain. The war is not over. Not here, not in Normandy, not in Europe. Ahead lies more blood, more nights of terror, more battles to break the spirit. But D-Day has cracked the wall, and through that crack pours not just soldiers, but history itself. As I march, I feel the weight of myth settle on my shoulders. One day I know they will speak of this day as legend. The day the tide turned, the day the world clawed back its freedom from the jaws of tyranny. They will speak of bravery, of courage, of triumph. But I will remember the faces, the hands gripping rifles in the surf, the eyes staring blankly into the sky, the voices cut short mid-cry. History will remember D-Day as a victory. I will remember it as survival. The land of Normandy is quiet now, the guns silent, the smoke drifting away into the evening sky. The fields glow in the fading light, red poppies swaying in the breeze, as though nature itself lays its wreath upon the dead. And I whisper, not to the living, but to those who did not walk away. We carried it through, but it was you who paid the price.